October surprise? Special Counsel Jack Smith's 165-page legal brief against former President Donald Trump was released this week. The filing offers an in-depth look into Smith's case charging Trump with carrying out multiple conspiracies in quest to keep Joe Biden from the White House in 2020, which clearly did not work. The dossier was officially released by United States District Judge Tanya Chutkan and reveals new details about Trump's attempts to remain in office. The filing expands on earlier allegations that Trump was aware his election claims were false. The document says Trump was given, quote, the unvarnished truth about losing the election, but continued to make false claims even while he was told they were untrue by campaign advisors. Trump said the details don't matter, according to the filing. The filing also says Trump and his confidants, quote, repeatedly changed the numbers in their baseless fraud allegations from day to day, and, quote, made up figures.
Smith also reveals Trump wanted to, quote, create chaos at the polling sites where votes were still being counted. An unnamed member of the Trump 2020 campaign allegedly tried to create confusion at a Detroit polling center on November 4th when more votes were going to Joe Biden.
The filings also delve into Donald Trump's relationship with Mike Pence, or lack thereof. According to the document, Trump allegedly disregarded concerns for his vice president, Mike Pence's safety during the January 6th Capitol attack. The filing claims that about 90 minutes after Pence publicly refused to overturn the 2020 election results, as rioters overtook the Capitol, Trump criticized Pence for sitting alone watching the news.
Smith also writes that when Trump received the alert letting him know that Pence had been taken to a safe location, the then president replied, "So what?" Trump aimed to block the filing's release, arguing in court papers that federal prosecutors are trying to, quote, usurp control and presentation of his defense, The Hill reports. Trump went off on Smith in a Wednesday interview with News Nation.
He's a deranged person. I call him deranged Jack Smith. He just lost the big documents case. That was the biggest of them all. They said the documents case, and they said that was the toughest of them all. Let me tell you, we just won it, and it was won strongly and completely. And it was a total victory in Florida. And he is a person who is trying, and he works for Kamala and he works for Joe. This was a weaponization of government, and that's why it was released 30 days before the election. And it's nothing new in there, by the way, nothing new.
I love how he says weaponization of government, when literally that's what this entire thing is about, is he was weaponizing government to basically turn the election to his favor. He wanted another Brooks Brothers riot, which happened, of course, during the 2000 recount in Florida. He wanted to do another one of those in Detroit. And he was targeting polls, of course, that were leaning towards Biden with more black voters in particular. I mean, this is like, I don't even know if it's a surprise at this point. We all know what happened. And if you don't know what happened, then I don't know where you've been for the last, few years. But I think it's the details, like sometimes the context and reading things and writing and seeing, the specific conversations that were brought up in court that maybe just make people a little bit more eager to show up at the polls. And maybe it's those never Trumpers that I think Kamala's focusing on right now, which is, she has to have never Trumpers get off the couch and vote for her in these key swing states. And maybe seeing the context and seeing how many Republicans around Donald Trump and administration officials were trying to push back against him, maybe that is going to help a little bit. I don't know if it was Jack Smith being political or not. I mean, if he's political, it's because he's been prosecuting the former president, but I don't think it's because he's necessarily pro-Kamala.
Yeah, I mean, the timing certainly is interesting because, of course, we know that this case has been kicked until after the election, and then in the documents case, he was found to have been appointed unconstitutionally. So it's a little interesting that the case has been delayed until after the election, but don't worry, we have the legal filing where Trump is not really allowed to defend himself, or at least not in court, some of the allegations contained within. But I think you're right that Kamala wants to win never Trumpers. I mean, her campaign has said as much in a New Yorker article where they go over her ground game strategy. They talk about her going into areas in rural North Carolina trying to win Republicans who don't like Trump. I'm sure we could probably get into a debate about whether or not that's a good strategy. I would contend that it's not, considering she is underperforming where Biden was with union voters and Black and Hispanic men.
Men, only men. So this is actually really important. It's not that she's underperforming with minority groups. It's that she's underperforming with men because Donald Trump's entire strategy right now is men. It's men. She's overperforming with everybody else, and that's his
women.
So, well, women, but women of all demographics, and so he has. I mean, but we talk about it like it's never that she has a problem with men. It's that he has a problem with women, and then she has a problem with all these minority groups, and that's, I think, a really the framing of that is not great, because he has a problem with minority groups too, of course. Of all minority groups. He's losing all the minority groups. He's chipping off a few men. She doesn't really have that problem. It's just that he's his bravado, his machismo campaigning, and for 8 years, for the last 9 years, he has been really trying to chip away that male vote. And okay, that's fine. That's a trade-off. I mean, in my opinion, like, you're not going to win them over. You're not going to win over the white working class men in the Midwest. I think that the Rust Belt was lost several years ago, and the Democrats should have been working on that for the last 10, 15 years, but instead they didn't. And so now she has to keep her base alive. She has to get enough young people, and she's got to get those never-Trumpers. That's the new coalition.
Yeah, that's why I think it's weird that she would be going into rural North Carolina, because I suspect that's not where the never-Trumpers are located. And it seems like she's trying to make this play for white working class rural voters that are very baked in for Trump at this point. But just going back to this legal document from Jack Smith, I mean, the other question involved here is, do people care? I mean, at this point, January 6th has been so litigated, whether it was through the impeachment process or even just through media reports and all of the public information that is, I mean, consistent with. I don't know that there was much new in here besides some of the specific language in text that he sent. The biggest quote-unquote bombshell allegation was not even something he said, but an unnamed campaign staffer said, which was in regards to let them riot in Michigan or something to that effect, or sowing confusion. There's no evidence obviously presented that Trump had anything to do with what that lone staffer was popping off about. And then we also know that there's a history of Democrats invoking the Electoral Count Act of 1887, most notably in the 2000 election between Bush and Gore.
It didn't work, by the way.
Yeah, exactly, and it didn't work here. And I think it is notable, by the way, that the contention is that Trump asking Pence not to certify the results of the election was illegal. And that was the crux of the issue, is that he wanted to overturn the election by doing something illegal. But there was a legal quandary involved in this piece of legislation as to what authority the vice president did have to reject electors and send the votes back to the states for a recount. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had to update the law in 2022 to specify that doing so was illegal.
Well, they specified it, I mean, again, because this has never happened. It's unprecedented.
Right, because it was a vague law.
But the issue here right now with Jack Smith is about whether or not there is presidential immunity. And that is the crux of everything here, and it's why it matters in this election, is that Donald Trump believes, no matter what, if he were to win or not win, he is going to eliminate multiple departments and become, president for life, as he stated. He actually said that. So, we're talking about a completely different scenario now in this final month, and I'm glad that Jack Smith released this to make the case that this is a poor lawmaking, yes, 100% poor lawmaking, but simultaneously, we are in unprecedented times where we have a former president who is willing to suspend the Constitution so that he could be president for life. I'm sorry, we just can't get away from that. That is something, the fact that came out of his mouth and it is not airing in every single ad in every single swing state. If you're listening, Kamala Harris campaign, put that in an ad, because that's what those people are thinking about.
Do you sincerely think that if Trump gets into office again, he will never leave?
Yes.
You sincerely believe that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, he basically showed.
I think that there's a lot of joking going on, particularly when we look at the Dictator on day one comment, which was a direct response to Democrat fear-mongering that he is going to be a dictator. The guy is known for using irony and jokes to poke fun at media narratives.
Oh yeah, he's funny. He's so funny. Donald Trump, that's what he's known for.
Hey, we both laughed when we played the sod of him calling Jack Smith deranged.
Not intentionally funny.
Okay. We have a lot more to cover, of course, here on Rising. We'll be back after this.